Can Chelsea become world champions once again? That is what we're going to find out on Sunday in New York as Chelsea hope to end this Club World Cup in the greatest way possible. I'm Daniel Childs. This is my preview of Chelsea versus PSG in the Club World Cup final, where hopefully Chelsea can not only win that trophy, another trophy in recent months, but also very much annoy the rest of the footballing world. We're going to give you my predicted lineup. We're going to look at PSG, the team news, the tactical stuff, all of that. I want to get your thoughts as ever in the comments below. How are you feeling ahead of this final? Are you confident? Are you fearful? What would be your lineup heading into this major game? But I do think Chelsea have the potential to become PSG's kryptonite in this game. And I'll tell you why a little bit later when we dissect my starting 11. Now, I understand the trepidation and fear about PSG. But I have to say, I've been really heartened and impressed by some of the noises coming out of Chelsea, not only from Enzo Maresca, but also some of the players. Enzo Maresca in press conferences, especially this one where he was asked about Chelsea potentially suffering off the ball because Real Madrid really struggled the other night, and Chelsea having to do similar, kind of having to accept that, having to adapt, and he responded very frankly, and I think in the best way possible. We'll play that little clip here and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Hi, Enzo. Jacob Steinberg from The Guardian. Given how PSG have played in the last 6 months and the performance that they put in against Real Madrid on Wednesday, how important is it that your players are willing to suffer on Sunday, because there will presumably be long spells where you do not have the ball?
Say again? The final part?
How important is it that your players are willing to suffer on Sunday, because there will be long times in the game where you do not have the ball?
Who said that?
It's amazing to me that is the same guy who sat there post Ipswich a few months ago, who sat there in many press conferences where we'd be on this show, I'd be on this podcast, and I'd be criticizing and just baffled by some of his quotes in terms of really not understanding the stakes of certain games, not understanding the club he's at, not understanding why people want to hear their head coach be a lot more confrontational, a lot more emotional, a lot more kind of just fighting for the club. And I think there has been a mentality shift at the club. I think that's undeniable. I do think it has come undeniably from some of the big wins. You don't get that confidence, that self-assuredness without those results. And undeniably, that's the case. Levi Colwell also talking about this with journalists when he was asked directly about PSG and how intimidating a team they are.
Like you said, if everyone thinks we're going to lose, we've got nothing to lose then. We've got to go out there and play our football and be confident and hopefully try and surprise everyone.
So I like that mentality. I do like that kind of messaging that we're here, we want to be here, we're supposed to be here, and we've earned the right to be here. And this isn't a case of just showing up. This isn't a case of just a participation trophy. We actually want to become one of the best teams in the world, because whatever happens on Sunday night, that is the ambition of Chelsea. That has to be the ambition of Chelsea. If that's not the ambition of the players, if that's not the ambition of Enzo Maresca, then we might as well go home, because that should be your ambition when you do have the resources, when you do have the history of Chelsea of going into these big occasions and upsetting the odds, because we are underdogs in this game. I think that's undeniable. You look at PSG, and there is absolutely reason to be intimidated by them. I think to fear that they are one of the best performing teams in the world right now. I think that's undeniable. What Luis Enrique has done there, pretty much since January, it feels like. I mean, pre-Christmas last season, I don't think many people could have anticipated, just based on their Champions League performance in the early stage of the season, that they would go on to win the competition so dominantly. Obviously, Kvaratskhelia coming in, some of the adjustments that were made during the season by Enrique have created this kind of monster team. And there is an inevitability to them. I think there are absolutely shades at times watching them in this competition and also the Champions League of Pep Guardiola's great Barcelona team. The way they suffocate you, the way how intense and athletic they are off the ball, but how kind of clinical and composed they are on it, the technical ability they have on the ball. Some of the players in central midfield who are able to dictate play, the ferocity of some of their attacking players. Achraf Hakimi, just an insane fullback who very much leads the charge in a creative sense. And, an imposing goalkeeper. So much about this team, everyone talks about aura nowadays. I mean, they really do admit that there is a fear, a fear that comes, I think, with playing PSG at the moment. If you look at their stats, obviously they've been very good in this tournament. Top scorer has actually been Fabian Ruiz. He has been a really impactful player. He obviously scored a big goal for them in the Champions League semi-final as well against Arsenal. Hakimi, though, has been top in this tournament. Top for assists, XG, chances created, big chances created. Vitinha has been brilliant in central midfielders, kind of that metronome. Accurate long balls per 90 and expected assists. João Neves, though, gets through a lot of defensive work for them. Off the ball, 2.3 successful tackles per 90. In terms of overall numbers for PSG in this tournament, they're lowest for goals conceded per match, top for clean sheets, second for average possession behind Man City, who obviously went out earlier in the tournament. Big chances, touches in the opposition box. They're 20th for accurate crosses per match, which kind of shows you that short passing game. And I think the big question that is posed to Chelsea and for Enzo Maresca, a team that does want a lot of the ball themselves, and there have been comparisons made, I think more so from the Chelsea side, but even Enrique said it as well, in terms of, I think, what Chelsea aspire to be. And this really is an opportunity for Chelsea and the project of Chelsea to prove that even if we don't win, there is some logic behind that. Because a few months ago, let's just put our hands up, there was no comparison between the two teams. Now there is at least some confidence based on what we've seen in this tournament, especially that Chelsea are at least moving in a positive direction. There is momentum about this team from a tactical, technical performance level, and I think that's understandable. But I think the big question will be, you are going to have to adapt. I don't think it's wrong for Maresca to come out and confront those questions and say that Chelsea are going to have to surrender all they're going to do. I mean, unless we are really shocked and Chelsea are able to take command of the ball, Maresca has shown an ability throughout his time at Chelsea to be flexible, particularly not so much the middle period of last season, but the start and end of the season. I think he definitely showed that. I'm reminded of the Liverpool game at home where Chelsea were kind of forced out of circumstance to play without the ball. But I think this is a good thing. I mean, I've consistently said that I think Chelsea are a brilliant transition team. I still do think we have the tools to be an explosive, devastating transition team. And I think Chelsea, even if it's not their plan A, their A mode, they can go into B mode, and I think can be really effective. And I think that's what they're going to have to do. And it's also about off the ball being exceptional. And to be fair to Enzo Maresca, off the ball, Chelsea have radically improved over the past 12 months, at least in the way they're able to shut down games, they're able to keep these big games very tight, very composed, and very much create those opportunities themselves, but from a defensive point of view, be a lot more rigid than they were under Pochettino, under Graham Potter. So I think that is undeniable. I do think there is a concern of our strategy in recent games. John McKenzie pointed this out, and the tactical account Tactics here, just a screenshot that I'm showing right now, which if you're listening to the podcast, I suggest either go and look at Tactics on Twitter, or go and check out the YouTube video as well, where you just see the cavernous kind of space that Chelsea are leaving. This was a screenshot from the semi-final against Fluminense, and you see a fact that there is just major gap in central midfield where you have Cucurella, Caicedo, Gusto near the halfway line as kind of almost a row of three. Then you have Nkunku and Neto pressing the two Fluminense centre-backs. But you really have, as I say, this kind of massive gap where you do have Palmer, you do have Enzo Fernandez within there. They aren't really marked. But in terms of off the ball, how a better team could really exploit that, and the space could really be impactful to Chelsea. You can't really have any passengers off the ball in this game, which is why I think a player like Christopher Nkunku kind of has to be sacrificed. I think you have to understand that in this kind of occasion. I think the best Chelsea teams have always done that. The best Mourinho teams did that. We did that very well in the Champions League run, both Champions League runs really, under Tuchel and Di Matteo. You have to have a respect and admiration. It's not about bowing down and throwing away your principles. It's about, in a final, do you want to win it or do you not want to win it? Do you want to stand on ceremony and stick to idealism, which, I think that someone like Arsene Wenger always fell victim to, and why his Arsenal teams regularly got crushed in the Champions League. It's in these big games, you have to understand who you're coming up against. There's no embarrassment with PSG being a better team than us. And even if Chelsea do all of the things that I think they probably should to counteract this and try and create a platform where they maybe could exploit PSG might just be incredible. And I think there has to be a humility about us that is the case. And that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. That doesn't mean that all of our hopes and kind of the momentum and the positive things we have celebrated in recent weeks and months are thrown away, basically. No, that should not be the case. But I think there needs to be humility that sometimes you do come up against amazing teams. I mean, you look at what PSG have done, whatever you think about Real Madrid at the moment, whatever you think about Inter Milan, the run of form they are on at the moment and the sort of players they have, whether you're looking at Ousmane Dembele, who, after a lot of injuries earlier in his career, is really reaching the potential as kind of this false nine type player, really dominant centre forward. Kvaratskhelia is an incredible wide player with the ability in brief, split seconds to change the complete complexion of a game. Achraf Hakimi, as we know, is one of the best fullbacks in world football. In central midfield, as we say, they've got the technical and I think also confidence to very much dominate a game. So you individually, Chelsea, this is the best quality team I think Chelsea have come up against for a while. So you have to understand that. But how am I looking to line up here? We've had the fluid system. We've talked about players that can come in and shapeshift during the game, in and out of possession. But I do think there are some adjustments that have to be made just to understand who you're coming up against, and also based on what I've seen in this tournament. So Rob Sanchez will be in goal, but there's been some concern over him being out of training. I've seen him pictured in training, so I think he'll start this game, obviously. And another thing of adapting, you can't have Rob Sanchez divering on the ball. It simply cannot happen. As we saw, Real Madrid, one of the best goalkeepers in Europe, was punished for it the other night. You simply cannot do it against this PSG side and how well oiled and functioning they are off the ball as well as on it. Reece James has to be starting this game, and I think he has to be starting it as a right back or a right centre back. That's just undeniable. I think 1v1, I think his ability to step up in these kind of occasions, this is a guy who played in a Champions League final and had an incredible performance at a much younger age, understands big games for Chelsea, and I think that's obviously what you want. I do think there is a very valid debate between who plays in the right of Chelsea's defence, whether you are starting Trevor Chalobah or starting Tosin Adarabioyo, because we know that Levi Colwill is going to play on the left side of Chelsea's defence. We also know that Marco Correa, this is a massive opportunity for him to kind of cement himself as one of the best left backs in world football as well. I'm going to go with Trev Chalobah. Yes, I know I'll be accused of bias, but I think it's more just I think Trev's got a better speed off the ball than Tosin Adarabioyo does. There is an argument, Louis, on our Chelsea Echo Pod made the point that, from a set piece kind of attacking point of view, if Chelsea are not going to have a lot of opportunities, can you make something of set pieces? And of course, Tosin can be a threat at set pieces. We've seen it in this tournament. We've seen it before. And I think Tosin has been in really good form recently. But I just think Trev, who played against Liverpool, for instance, a team who have a lot more of the ball, small technical kind of players who want to sort of rotate, shift around and kind of drag you out of position. I think Trev played really well in that game. So I think Trev will get the nod for this occasion for Chelsea. And also from an attacking point of view, I think Trev can be really, really good with some of those passes he plays into either Cole Palmer or Enzo Fernandez. I just want to play three central midfielders here. And I've sort of given this theory of playing this three before. I think this trio could play massive games for Chelsea. This is a massive game for Chelsea, and I want to see it tried. Moises Caicedo, the man of steel, the man who just never goes down with an injury. I mean, I was really fearful the other night when he went down, but within literally about 24 hours, it seemed like he was telling people, I'm okay, I'm ready to go. Absolute insanity. I hope it's not a Kante situation where he's playing through the pain and it's going to have greater, vaster repercussions for him as we get into the season. That's touch wood. I pray that's the case, and I pray that's not the case, and he is actually fit for this game. But it's insane, his durability. Enzo Fernandez has been creatively one of Chelsea's most impactful players, and this is a great platform for him to not only show that, but also maybe as well contribute from a goal scoring point of view. You think about the way he stepped up when Chelsea desperately needed a goal in the Conference League final. Those late runs into the box, can he provide that on this occasion? And Andre Santos, I thought off the ball, I thought his defensive discipline against Palmeiras in the quarterfinal was incredible. And again, I think the three in central midfield, you've got to try and combat that. The way PSG want to play. Yes, they, you will see defenders like with Chelsea drop into defence and make a free. However, I prefer to have a scenario where you have the legs of Santos, the legs of Caicedo, the ability on the ball of Enzo Fernandez here to try and match up what PSG are going to provide here. I think that's more important. Yes, you are sacrificing an inside forward, potentially, a Christopher Nkunku, but I don't think Christopher Nkunku is incredible off the ball. And I think if you have any passengers, you are potentially sacrificing something and could be vulnerable to PSG overwhelming you. Those are the fine margins against a team of the quality on the ball of PSG. That does then mean that Cole Palmer has to effectively play as a right winger, which we have seen in this tournament. And yes, there was an example against Flamengo where it didn't work because we barely got the ball to him. But I would say in a game where Chelsea are going to be fluid, and we've seen them be fluid, that does not mean that in possession Chelsea can't shift away from this 4-3-3. It doesn't mean that it's just a 4-3-3 for the entirety of the game and Palmer is going to be resigned to playing on the touchline the whole time. But I think Palmer is a very intelligent presser. I think he's one of Chelsea's better, kind of more subtle pressers. I think he presses in a way, it's not just trying to chase down a player. I think the way he sometimes is able to move his body to try and block a ball and regain possession for Chelsea is really intelligent, and I think that's impactful. But obviously in transition, you want, when those chances open up, Palmer receiving the ball maybe in that inside right kind of pocket of space, and then can open up the pitch. And then you've got on the opposite side Pedro Neto, who has been one of Chelsea's best players in recent weeks, and has obviously had, I think, a really, really good tournament under some really challenging circumstances too. You've got to give him credit to keep playing and keep improving and showing an ability off the ball. And obviously, undeniably, Joao Pedro is going to start this game. How can you not start Joao Pedro after what he did against Fluminense? So I think obviously that front three, I think, is it speaks for itself. And I don't know. I think that my assessment is I could see a scenario where Chelsea are going to have good moments in this game. I do think PSG have fluctuations within games. I think if you're able to, especially in that opening period, we saw it in the Champions League final, we saw it against Real Madrid. I think if you can, and I think Botafogo did this brilliantly earlier in the tournament, you have to accept they are going to create chances. You have to accept you are going to be in periods of sustained pressure. If you can get through that, if you can be defensively diligent, very aware, and be at your top game, we see at times PSG still have that vulnerability. I know it's not the same that it was in the past where they really would collapse, but I even remember watching that Champions League semi-final second leg against Arsenal, where it looked for the world when Achraf Hakimi scored that second goal. Game's done, turn it off. PSG are going through to the Champions League final, but then Arsenal got one back, and suddenly there's a bit of vulnerability. There's a bit of, them being forced into a game they don't want to play. And I think that is also something that Chelsea have at times been good at, of forcing, and the best Chelsea teams that I love are able to shapeshift. They're able to take you into a game that you don't want to play, whether that be a more physical, more confrontational game. And we know within this team we've got that. So at times I have no issue going more direct to Joao Pedro. You want to see Cucurella battling against the opposition, really trying to unsettle. I think on his side, it's most likely going to be Desiree Doué on his side that he's going to have to battle against. But we know Cucurella can perform against some very good wide players and very much come up on top. Unsettle, disrupt, be confrontational, make it a less aesthetically pleasing game. That's what you have to do against when you are coming up either against teams of very comparable quality or better quality. And I hope that we walk away from this game. Obviously, we want to win it. And we will be disappointed if we lose it. It won't be a trophy if we don't win it. But we walk away from this game looking at the team and going, we can compete with PSG. And there is a sense that we are going in an upwards trajectory. When a few months ago, I would have really been fearful. The Chelsea team of February and March coming up against PSG, I don't think that team stands a chance. This Chelsea team is very different. I think this Chelsea team, just from their momentum and form, have come through a lot of adversity, have had to deal with a lot of pressure. And in some ways, I'm not saying the pressure's off them, but I think there is an expectation from a lot of people that PSG are just going to walk into this game and casually beat Chelsea, which they may well do given their form. However, I think that hopefully plays into Chelsea's favour psychologically, where they can surprise a few people. They are further along in their development than many people anticipate. And for Enzo Maresca, as a tactical kind of, as a coach who wants to, show his tactics, show his tactical development, show the way he's progressing and coaching this team, it's a great chance for him to undermine one of the best performing coaches in world football as well. So there we go. I will stick to this and I'll say this and I promise you this. Yeah, it could be a complete blowout, right? But even if it is, it's going to have to be something really, really terrible. I have to say, even then, I said at the start of this tournament, I'm not going to get outraged if Chelsea are, have a really bad day in this tournament. And that was the case even against Flamengo. There were criticisms of that game because, in a way, it's this never-ending season. It's not as big as what's going to happen in the Premier League and the Champions League. And I still firmly believe that, yes, we would love to sit here as Club World Cup champions. We will parade it. We will rub it in the face of people who really hate Chelsea and, wanted to see us go into oblivion back the last time we won the Club World Cup in 2022. And that will be fun. And I think it will be another great step in this young team's development. However, if it's not to be for Chelsea in this tournament, that doesn't mean everything gets thrown away. And that doesn't mean that suddenly all of the positivity we've had is an illusion, is fake. I think some people will try and spin it like that, but I don't think that's the case. So those are my thoughts. That is my preview. Please do give me your thoughts as ever in the comments below about things you agree, disagree with, your predicted lineups, and I'll see you again very, very soon. All the best.